Welcome to Wine Soundtrack South Africa. Listen to the passion with which producers narrate their winery and their world. In 30 answers, discover their stories, personalities, and passions.
Hello, friends and listeners of Wine Soundtrack. This is Marina Kahlo, and today I'm joined by Jacques du Plessis from Oak Valley Wines. A very warm welcome, Jacques. Please, can you tell me a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. So I've been here for 5 years now. Like I just said, I can't believe it. It feels like the other day where I moved here. And I've worked in during my studies, I used to start out in the Swartland, and I think that it was a very, very fun time. Met some great friends over on that side. After this, I did 2 vintages in the Swartland. After that, I took up a job in the Breede Kloof, and I also was there for 6 or 7 years. And then after that, Constantia, and now I'm here. So I've it feels like I've just started in my career, but actually looking back at the vintages, it's been a while now, and it's nice to be here also now for 5 years, and be in a place like I mentioned to you where it feels like a complete sort of lifestyle move, and I just love living here, waking up here, and it's an area that I believe in, so it's great to be in Elgin, and I'm really excited. It's a really exciting time on Oak Valley, and it's amazing to be part of that process.
It is incredible, and we were talking offline about Oak Valley and its history and several generations to where it is today. It's quite an incredible operation. What else happens here at Oak Valley?
Sure, yeah, it's a pioneering family. The Rawbone-Viljoen family, they were one of the founders of Elgin, essentially. The farm was founded in 1898, so we're actually celebrating 125 years this year. So that's obviously very special right there. Today it's in the hands of the 5th generation, and it's always been really pioneering. You can imagine 1898, moving out to Elgin. Antonie Viljoen, the founder, his friends laughed at him for buying this farm. They called it the sour veld, or the cold and the wet sour veld in a part of Caledon called Elgin. It was not considered a good place to farm. It was too cold, too wet. But he saw the potential, and he was a medical doctor, and he studied in Scotland, and he fell in love with English oaks, and he came back. He bought this farm. His friends laughed at him, but he bought the place. He planted 5,000 oak trees, and there's obviously a lot more to the story, but he was a pioneer. He started planting apples. He started planting grapevines in 1902. So, it was completely pioneering work, and that ethos, I think, lives on today. Still the same family, and today it's always been a diversified business. Every department functions completely separately, and all of us have to survive on our own. But today we've got the fruit department, which is the biggest revenue stream of the farm, and it's apples and pears. And then we've got the flowers department, which is a focus on cut flowers, supplying retailers all over the country. So quite a big department. And then I'm in charge of the viticulture and the wine department, and we are one of the smallest on the farm. But obviously the owners are passionate about wine, but as a department we have to be profitable in our own right. And then we had free range beef and pigs until COVID came, which is unfortunate. So we sold our cows and our pigs 2 years or 3 years ago now. And then from a wine tourism point of view, we've got mountain biking, which is a big thing for us. We like so many of us on the farm love mountain biking. We've got the Wines to Wales and the Cape Epic that often come over the farm, Wines to Wales every year. So we love balancing sort of that lifestyle element with wine, you know, that it can be enjoyed along with a healthy lifestyle. We've got a fantastic restaurant, so you know, it's a diverse place. It's an exciting place. There's always something happening, in never a dull moment. Like I mentioned to you, I almost don't have to leave the farm because it really feels like just a good lifestyle. You know, you sort of live and breathe where you work.
It really is like that in Elgin, I must say. You just feel the openness and the freshness of everything when you come here always. In terms of vineyards, how many hectares do you have under vine?
So we've got 33 at the moment, but that number changes. It's quite a exciting time for us because we are both removing old vines that does not belong in our portfolio, and we are also actively planting. So I basically, when I plant, I also have to pull out some older blocks that don't work. So we also sell some grapes, and we found that, you know, it is better to have more control in the valley over especially Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. So when it comes to planting vineyards, that is all that we are planting at the moment is very exciting blocks of Chardonnay and Pinot. But we've also recently removed old vines of Cabernet and Cabernet Franc, which produce fantastic quality, but we just feel that from a grape selling point of view, it didn't make sense for us. Obviously, we've got the apples as well. So the vineyards that we have on the farm, ideally, we would like to turn all of that into our own wines. So yeah, 33. We've just actually finished planting a very exciting new block of Pinot. That's 2.4 hectares. So yeah, it changes all the time. But we would like to keep it small and very focused. We don't want to. It's taken us a while to get to this point of specialization, and like I mentioned, we've been known for white Bordeaux blend. We've been known for a red Bordeaux blend. We've made some Syrah in the past. And now, 20 years later, the focus is very much cool climate, Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, and we make a very nice Sauvignon Riesling as well, but cool climate cultivars. And ideally we would like to keep it, you know, from a hectare point of view, sort of below 40, where I can handle both the viticulture and the winemaking.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think to run your business optimally, it makes sense to grow the grapes that you want to put in the wines under your label, for sure. What are your current markets outside of South Africa?
Yeah, so yes, we actually in the past haven't put enough focus on exports, I think. So we focused, had a big focus on the local market until about COVID, and I think COVID was quite a bit of a wake-up call for all of us to realize that it does make sense to just spread risk, and historically we've been sort of 80% local actually, and 20% export, but now we would like to move more towards 50-50. We also think that especially in the premium Chardonnay and Pinot category, we can offer amazing value. So compared to cool climate American or Oregon Pinots or New Zealand Chardonnays, we can offer amazing value for money. So exports will become a big focus for us. But currently the UK is a big market for us, Holland, Belgium, Poland even. Germany is a small market for us. I think there's some potential for us there. We don't really sell much in the east, so that's potentially a market we would like to look at. We're just starting out in the US, so it's tiny. It's not really been a focus, but it will be. We have to get out there and actually go tell the story in the next few years.
Fair enough. Talking about you, what did you want to be when you were a little boy?
Yes, I didn't actually know until about matric. I think I always knew it would be more or less in the natural sciences. But as a boy, I think something outside. I've always had a love for the outdoors, and I've always loved a quality lifestyle, like just anything a very simple lifestyle, but a quality lifestyle. And I think So I knew the natural sciences appealed to me. I've always loved biology, and I've always loved science and physics, and especially just the outdoors. And it all sort of came together when I started doing weekend work in Matric in tasting rooms just around Paarl. I'm from Paarl, and I saw, yes, this is actually like, the winemakers are cool people, these guys. And I started chatting to them, like, what did you study? Like, how did you end up in this? And when I found out about the degree at Stellenbosch, I was like, wow, this is seems like a good balance of creativity and science and the outdoors. And I knew it had to be something that you can't stagnate in. And the beauty of this industry is that every vintage is unique. Everyone throws a different curveball at you, so you can never master it. And I think that's quite rare to have the ability to be in an industry that will constantly challenge you. So I think it's been a good choice. I'm no regrets at the moment.
Yeah, it's so interesting what you say about being in an industry that constantly challenges you, because I do think it really is. It's the truth. Nothing is the same from one year to the next, and that really does form part of what makes our industry fun and keeps us on our toes and exciting. There was a little wine fly just flew into my Pinot Noir, and that's absolutely fine because I don't have a problem with protein. So what I want to know is more specific to wine. You said you worked in tasting rooms in and around Paarl. And part of your motivation was meeting these cool winemakers and the science side of things. But was there perhaps a seminal moment of when you tasted a wine, a specific wine that kind of made you go, oh my gosh, this is actually really something quite special?
I think for me, I'm like any special experience. It doesn't necessarily always have to be a very expensive wine. For me, it's all about the setting. I'm very sensitive to any sort of thing that has an influence on the experience, whether that is, the setting, the person pouring it, even the music. I'm very sensitive to that sort of thing. So some of the best experiences I've had has just been with phenomenal, interesting people in a special setting, and you just get the feeling that this is once in a lifetime. But I think just from a wine experience point of view, I will never forget, when I was harvesting in the Swartland, and I was just a student. So, I mean, you're like a sponge. You're just absorbing the whole experience around you. And at that stage, I was actually not like sold. Obviously, it's in your fourth year, so you've sort of spent a lot of money on your studies already. But I was still not sold on whether I want to be a winemaker. And Dirk Niepoort was harvesting with us because him and Eben made a port together. And he poured us a white port, and sort of asked us, what vintage do we think it is? And all of us were like, it seems quite old, like it's probably in the 70s, And I remember him asking, like, which century? And we're like, well, obviously the 20th century. And he's like, no. And it was an 1875 or something like that. I mean, that it's a once in a lifetime sort of experience. And you can pour the world's most famous wines, but that doesn't necessarily come close to that experience with just being surrounded by amazing people in an amazing setting, listening to great music, and just knowing that, wow, this will probably never happen again. And for me, that you can apply that to even a wine that's not expensive at all, but you have it in a very special setting with special people. It's a rare moment.
You're so right, and I often speak to people. It's so funny people who come to South Africa, for example, and they're on holiday and it's summer and it's hot and they have this amazing wine tasting, and then they buy the wine and they take it back to wherever they're from, where it's probably cold and dark and miserable, and then they open it and it's just not the same. They're just like, really, this wine was amazing when we tasted it, and now it's not the same. And I think this is the same kind of thing.
Absolutely. No, we are very influenced by the things around wine. Packaging, the story behind it, the winemaker, the vineyards. It's and we have to be able to utilize that. We don't, like I mentioned to you, we don't want to end up just being a bottle on a shelf. It's a work of art, and it has context. It has a story to tell, and I think South Africans are very good at telling those stories. It's just always a challenge because we are quite far from our markets. So that's where technology and the latest tools come in, to be able to just tell our stories to the world, because we do have an amazing story to tell.
Completely, we really, really do. And one can only hope that when they're opening this bottle of wine in their dark and cold, wherever they are, that the memories of the experience the first time round is what really brings it home, for sure. What is the most expensive wine here at Oak Valley? What is it and what does it cost?
It's a bargain. It's only 750 Rand.
That's a bargain.
Absolutely, I think so. We only make, we only make about 700 bottles per wine in that range. It's called our Tabula Rasa range. And it is sort of started out as our in-house research and development project, where we started bottling small volumes of a specific clone from a specific vineyard to get to know the individual building blocks that we work with every year. So our estate Pinot and Chardonnay called Groenlandberg, they are blends of different clones in different vineyards. Where with our Tabula Rasa range, it's single vineyard, single clone. So I would just choose 2 barrels from that clone and bottle it separately. And then it sort of started becoming a brand, and people, the feedback was great, and so that's our most expensive wine. But again, it's, for me, those are interesting wines that need that context. It's a hand sell, we can cherry pick our customers, where it's normally a sommelier that knows Oak Valley and can tell that story, because context is important with that range, especially because it's single clones can sometimes be a little bit more one-dimensional, but they are interesting, and I think there's a place for interesting wines. We're not trying to make a perfect wine in that range, but it should be interesting, and it should start a conversation. I think that's the idea with that range.
Fair enough. Tell me, I wouldn't dare ever ask a winemaker what their favorite wine is, because that's very difficult to answer. So what I'm going to ask you, however, is right now in your cellar, which wine, think about whether if the one's in barrels or even in tanks, when you go there with your wine thief, which one excites you the most at the moment?
Sure. 2023 has been an interesting one. So obviously, I think all of us were sort of surprised with how the vintage ended, but it started out actually amazingly well. And luckily for us, our Chardonnay and Pinot came, most of our best blocks came in before the rain started. And the Chardonnays are looking phenomenal this year. I've been looking at the climatic data, and it's been interesting. It was actually quite a dry and warm vintage until middle February, and that's more or less when we pick our Chardonnays and Pinots, and then it took a drastic turn, and it became a really cold and wet vintage after that. So our Chardonnays are looking phenomenal this year, because they've got that, Elgin can be quite austere, because we've got such high acidity, and the wines can be quite mineral and a little bit shy in its youth. But because we had that abundant sort of sunshine, obviously it's still, compared to other regions, it's still cold, it's still cool, but there was just that little bit more sunshine. But we still have phenomenal acidities. So I'm really excited about the Chardonnays this year. I think it's got a very, very nice balance with that fresh mineral aspect, but there's still enough aromatics to make it really interesting.
It's so funny because I've heard from other winemakers as well who really, really are rating 2023 Chardonnays. So you heard it here first, South African Chardonnay, in particular Oak Valley Chardonnays 2023. Get your hands on some. Do you believe in a perfect cultivar?
Look, I mean, I think there's so much diversity within a cultivar. And I mean, we've seen this. When you're working with Chardonnay and Pinot, for example, these are such old grapes that there's such diversity between the clones, which makes it really interesting. So, often people think that, this cultivar doesn't work. It's like, but have you tried that clone? That could be really interesting for you. So, We've learned that there's such diversity between your more delicate sort of light floral clones of Pinot and your more sort of serious structured clones of Pinot that it's just within a cultivar there's diverse genetics, and you need to consider that. So I think in our context where we've chosen to focus on Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, and we are lucky because we've got enough land and we can choose different altitudes, aspects, row directions, pruning methods, vine densities, and clones, that we are still able to have a lot of diversity stylistically in the cellar. So I think often people talk about, there should be a drastic move towards something that's maybe a bit more drought resistant, or something that is more rot resistant, or all these things. There's a lot happening just within cultivars, and there's a lot that you can do in the vineyard to also prepare yourself for events like that. So no, I think it's very important to be patient and to be very observant. I think you can definitely develop. You must just spend more time in the vineyards and realize what little tweaks that you can do can sometimes have a phenomenal outcome. But you need to be patient. You can't rush that process. And I think a lot of farms go quite drastic and jump to different cultivars before they've actually ventured into, okay, maybe the answer is just better clones, better rootstocks, different spacing methods, maybe different sites. Maybe you are a brand in a specific region, but you would like to introduce another wine. It doesn't necessarily have to come from your farm. You can buy it from another region where it does work. But no, I think all of us need to just be more observant with our own conditions, and I think adapt and just learn from every vintage where you can improve your how you work with the cultivars that you have.
That's a very good perspective and certainly sage advice. As a consumer, what do you enjoy drinking?
I think Pinot and Chardonnay in Elgin, as my wife also tells me, we become so actually used to acid in Elgin. So it's quite dangerous, because then when you start drinking reds, you start drinking looking for reds that are quite delicate and fresh, and I love Grenache and the lighter reds, Cinsaults, and grapes that you can, wines that you can even chill slightly. I prefer wines that it depends on the time of the year, the time of the day. But I love fresh reds, to be honest, and red fruit with mineral aspects and good acidity. For me, that's quite important.
I agree. I think we make some really exciting wines within that spectrum these days here in South Africa, which is great. And if you were to go out for a romantic dinner with your wife, you mentioned just now, what would you order for her?
Sure. When we started dating, she didn't actually drink Riesling, and now she's starting to open up to Riesling. So we both love opening different wines. Like when we're going out, it's not going to be just one glass of one cultivar. There's typically, you know, sort of one or two whites and one or two reds, which is the perfect sort of way to do it. So yeah, we don't have a staple sort of go-to brand. I think it applies to most winemakers. We like to keep it interesting and exciting, and different glasses of different things, and wines made by our friends in different regions. You know, we don't just drink Elgin. We don't just drink Pinot. It's supporting friends in the industry, and so no. Definitely keeping it. You have to keep it interesting, I think. And when it comes to food as well, we don't overthink like trying to pair food perfectly with wine. For us, it's all about like if you have good wine in a good setting and you've got good food, then it will be a good evening. And I think that also applies to our restaurant here. Is our wine definitely doesn't match the food that our restaurant makes, but it works because it's great food, it's great, it's a great setting, and it's great wine.
It's all about the experience, really, I must say. And after an amazing experience has been had, do you have a hangover remedy?
Ice cold beer. Yeah, no, I must say I cannot look at wine again for a good few hours. Maybe the next night I'll think about it. But no, ice cold beer the next morning, it does work.
Hair of the dog every time. Okay, so a UFO lands right here on this grassy patch, and they've been traveling for a long time, several light years, and they're really thirsty. What do you pour for them?
Hectic. That's a tough one. Do they understand? Can we talk to one another? No.
Yeah, you can talk.
I can talk. Okay. I'd probably give them one of our old vintages of Chardonnay. Some of our first vintages of Chardonnay. I think if they don't like that, then it's like, okay, like you guys might as well kill me now. But yeah, I'll take them to the old library stock and sort of see if I can relate to them somehow with giving them something interesting and rare.
Very cool. I want to be one of those aliens. When harvest starts, at the start of harvest, do you and your team have any harvest rituals or good luck rituals or anything like that you apply?
I must be honest. I tend to be that time of the year. I tend to be in such a zone and just really focusing on the vineyards. It's something I have to work on. It's just be. I want to say fetching them from the airport, fetching the interns from the airport is the only tradition. But no, I think the last few years really sort of focusing on the vineyards, and that time of the year just making sure I'm picking dates and everything is. Maybe it's time for me to start introducing a bit more laid-back sort of culture. We do have great music always playing in the winery. I think that's essential. You can't make wine without the right atmosphere. And we do, you know, I mean, if you are going to play the wrong sort of, everyone gets a chance on the playlist, but you will be very unpopular if you try and play something that everyone doesn't like. So the right atmosphere is important, but no, maybe it's time. Maybe Harvest 2024, I'll introduce a ritual.
Everyone has to wear SpongeBob SquarePants underwear. Can you imagine?
I don't want to.
When you're not working, how do you keep yourself busy?
Sure. It's like I mentioned, it's a big farm. We've got phenomenal mountain biking on the farm, so I love going for a cycle after work in summer. We've got nice dams on the farm, so we can even go for a paddle. The dams are quite big, so we can actually go for a nice surf ski paddle on the dams. Yeah, and there's mountains. So, I mean, we've got nice. Like taking the dogs up for a walk in the mountains. So yeah, between the three of those, there's enough to do here. Yeah.
And music? Are you into music? Any particular genres, groups, bands, styles?
Oh, absolutely. I love music. I think my dad always made sure whenever we went on holidays that there was always good music playing. So I think music is it's an essential part of, I think, my personality. I play a bit of guitar as well, so I really enjoy good music. I must say music like Rodriguez, J.J. Cale, Dire Straits. It's sad to say, like, most of them are obviously aging artists. I wish I could mention a 25-year-old artist now that I'm listening to, but I mean, there is if you just have to look a bit more carefully and make sure that the music is still good and it doesn't need a music video to make it a good song. But no, I think those three artists are some of my favorites. But then, depending on the mood, something like Led Zeppelin, Smashing Pumpkins, there's a place for that.
Old school, very cool, nice. Do you support any sports teams or individuals, anything like that?
I used to. I think the last few years have been interesting with regards to sports. I found I used to love just going to Newlands and watching the Stormers and things like that. It's been so long that I've actually gone to a stadium to watch a sports event. I'm much more into sort of more individual sports and watching documentaries on people just doing, sort of more solo sports, or watching a mountain biking event, or just guys that are like just climbing peaks all over the world. So I've maybe moved a bit away from team sports. I love watching Springbok rugby still. Like, I won't miss a Springbok game. I'll get up any time of the night to watch the Boks play, and hopefully going into the World Cup it's going to be good for us. But yeah, I must be honest, the last few years sports have not been a priority.
That is fair enough. What would you say is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
I think that's quite a tough one, but I think someone did say, I can't remember who it was, but you have to in this industry you have to be patient. And I think it's such a sort of cliche, obvious thing, but it really is true. Like, you can't just rock up and hop between jobs, and it only gets rewarding when you're starting to make wines where you had a real say in, and you can only say that after a few years, and especially when you are planting new vineyards, and you were involved all the way from the site selection, clone, rootstock, and then obviously it takes a few years for a wine to come from that block that you are proud of, and you share it with someone. Then it gets really rewarding. So I think patience is absolutely crucial, and I think it's just not everyone can commit to a specific place for that many years, but it does take a while to settle into a new job and make wines that you feel you saw all the way from the vineyard into the cellar. So yeah, patience. Don't expect too much too quickly.
And if you were to be given an opportunity to enjoy a bottle of wine with anyone in the world, alive or dead, and it's any bottle of wine, who would it be, and what would the wine be?
Sure. Wow. I think the wine, I think, is probably an older. Like, I enjoyed, one of my favorite wines was actually a wine from Priorat called Kloos Mogador. I think it was a 2004 or 5. It was a phenomenal wine. Those wines are just so big, but yet they have this real mineral edge. So I would maybe choose that wine, or maybe like an old Latour, or one of the classic old sort of Bordeaux's, with someone like a Jim Morrison, because I mean that's such a weird guy. But it would be so interesting for me, like phenomenal artist, like some of the music that the Doors produced. But we are just so different. But I think maybe we can connect over good music and that bottle of wine. It will have to be it can only be an interesting conversation.
It can only be interesting. I love that. Definitely. Do you think we'll still be drinking wines in 2,000 years' time?
Absolutely. I think in a world where people expect a lot, it's sort of everything is sort of quick and easy and accessible. I think there will always be a place for rare things, and wine is so authentic and real, and it has value. It's something scarce, and I think it will always be a place for that. There will be very little hope left if people can't appreciate something rare and beautiful. And it's an absolute privilege to be working with a product that has that intrinsic value to it, and that can convey a message and a story, and a product that can convey a piece of land. There will always be a place for that, and I think people will always pay for something rare and authentic. So I've got no doubt about that. What cultivar it will be, I don't know, but there will always be good people being good farmers, and that know how to capture a piece of land somehow by means of wine.
Yeah, I hope you're right. I hope it's something that will never die, for sure. Are there any winemaking areas in the world that you would still like to explore?
Yeah, I must be honest, the last few years I haven't traveled enough. I would like to visit still New Zealand. I haven't been to New Zealand or Australia actually, yeah, so New Zealand, Australia, I think there's some exciting wines coming, especially from New Zealand, and especially Chardonnay, and maybe Oregon. I haven't been to Oregon yet. I would love to go taste some Chardonnay and Pinot there as well. So between those three regions, I think it's also quite relevant to in the new world. We will always be compared to those three regions. I think there's very little. It's hard to compare yourself to Burgundy because it's such different conditions. It's very different soils. It's mostly older vines as well, and obviously it's brands with massive reputations. So it would be quite interesting to benchmark ourselves a bit, maybe against a New Zealand, Australia, and Oregon a bit more.
Those are indeed very, very interesting areas that's worth exploring. We're just about done, but before I finish, I'd like to play a little game with you. I'm going to mention 3 cultivars or styles of wine, and I'd like you to pair each one, not with food, but with music. So either an artist or a genre or a specific song, if you like, that really resonates and connects with that type of wine. So I think I'd like to start with a Riesling.
Sure, tough one. I think it's quite exotic. It's quite different. You either love it, or some people even hate it. I don't know why, but something like a Caesarea Evora.
That is exotic for sure. Okay, it would be wrong not to include Chardonnay.
It's more classic. I think in Elgin we sort of go for more lean and maybe sort of elegance. So it maybe someone I would go international, French, Carla Bruni.
Sexy as well.
Soft on the eye.
Indeed. Okay, let's go with a Cabernet Sauvignon.
more rockstar territory now. Yeah, but at the same time, I think, Dire Straits, like I mentioned, it's just proper music, but at the same time, it's proper rock and roll. It's I think their music it would be perfect with a great bottle of Cab.
I think you're right, for sure. Jacques, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. Can you please just remind our listeners where they can find Oak Valley online, social media, and if they ever did make their way out to South Africa and Elgin in particular, what they can expect to experience on the farm?
Well, you can probably expect relatively miserable weather. Look, it's a beautiful place, but it's obviously the coldest wine region in the Cape, so it's often a bit more cloudy, and we often get these light rains through summer. But it's a special place. They will not regret coming out here. It's a phenomenal farm with a lot of oak trees and just a great atmosphere. You can feel the history. It's close to Cape Town as well, so Cape Townians can just hop over Solari's Pass and then they're here. We've got a fantastic restaurant as well called The Melting Pot, and it's just great to sit here around the pool and enjoy Chef John's food and our wines. We've got great mountain biking, but when it comes to online, it's oakvalley.co.za is our website. We're on social media as well, so you will definitely find us there. But rather come out and experience it firsthand and be immersed in the experience a bit more, and bring your mountain bike with.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to a new episode of Wine Soundtrack South Africa. For details and updates, visit our website winesoundtrack.com.